Welcome, boys and girls. Christine here with a discussion about Wurrzag, the Great Green Prophet in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, and his horde of savage orc greenskins. If Grimgor is focused on Black Orcs, and Skarsnik is focused on goblins, then Wurrzag is focused on the savage orcs, rogue idols, and a lot of magic potential in his campaign. He might just very well be the best legendary lord in a jungle setting in the entire game, or at least the one that starts in an actual jungle. And that's because he does have the ability of tunneling in his campaign. And here's a couple of things to know about that inherently. While the jungle is a severe and limiting factor in campaigns from the perspective of movement, to be sure, the benefit that Wurrzag does end up having in this campaign is that the jungle is really good for one thing: ambushing. So jungle terrain gives anyone that's looking to use ambush tactics a pretty big advantage. And this works so very well with Wurrzag, not just because he has tunneling, so he has extra mobility to get to a position and next turn set up an ambush, but on top of that, due to the nature of greenskins, and specifically the nature of Wurrzag's armies, the focus he has on savage orcs, the AI will continuously underestimate their chances in auto-resolve, because the auto-resolve result you do have is not the best in the world. But that doesn't mean it translates into actual battle results. Because one of the important things to understand about the AI in Total War Warhammer 3 is that regardless of the difficulty that you're playing on, it can be normal, it can be legendary, it can be very hard battle difficulty, normal difficulty, it doesn't matter. But the way the AI works is it's going to try and attack armies that it thinks are weaker than theirs, and it's also going to try and attack you at vulnerable points. This is why ambushing is so important. But due to Wurrzag's focus on savage orc units, which have a poor relationship with armor, the AI is always going to view those kind of armies as being weaker than theirs. Like, consider a faction like Tzeentch, which has a pretty good auto-resolve situation because of all the heavily armored units that Tzeentch can get, compared to an army like this one, like Savage Orc Big Guns. But in actuality, in terms of the manual battles, you might end up having to find more manual battles than in many other campaigns, unless you're playing Skaven, who also have a similar issue, but you will absolutely have a significant advantage in those manual battles compared to what the auto-resolve is telling you on any difficulty. And that's because of the way that Savage Orcs work. Inherently speaking, Savage Orcs sacrifice their armor for something else. Specifically, they sacrifice their armor for physical resistance, 25% physical resistance. Wurrzag has a very easy way of recruiting Savage Orcs. He can recruit them in any settlement in his campaign. He does get some benefits in Savage Orc settlements with a unique structure only available to him. But quite importantly, when you're going up in a battle against Savage Orcs, you need to understand that just because you might think that auto-resolve shows one thing, their actual battle result is going to be different because they have that charge benefit, because they have that physical resistance, because they have that frenzy. Savage Orcs are actually quite solid in melee. Like, even Savage Orc Archer boys, seriously, these guys are far better in melee than you might think, because between frenzy and physical resistance, they can actually stand up to a bunch of different units. Now, of course, the downside of the physical resistance is magical attacks, because magical attacks neutralize that physical resistance until you neutralize the magical attack, so you're countering their counter. And this is something that Wurrzag can do, and only he can do it out of the Savage Orcs. So, what he does have in his skill line, or you do need to get him in order to do so, but if you're playing under any other Greenskin campaign, it's not necessarily worth worrying too much about it, but he gets the Idol of Gork unique scrap upgrade. The Idol of Gork does the following. I haven't gotten it in this campaign on any unit because there's no reason for me to do so until I have to deal with Kairos or magical attack units, or Manfred. But what this does is it negates magical weapons within an effect area. That is a pretty big deal. So even a faction like Tzeentch, which may have magical attacks, or Khorne, who certainly will have magical attacks, even a faction like that is going to struggle against these guys. They're very powerful. They're low on defense, but very high on attack, damage, melee attack. I have 53 that I have on these guys. High on leadership, high on the charge. They're fairly scary. If you've ever played a campaign against Wurrzag, then you know how terrifying it freaking is to have one of his armies, even with bad units, just charging straight towards you. You gotta feel for tic-tac-toe, although he does have that focus on flying units, so you can kind of bypass that, though, yeah, Orc Archer boys are not to be underestimated. But that's not all. No, that is not all. You do get that 15% upkeep benefit for Savage Orc units, Winds of Magic, Power Reserve Capacity, and you have a landmark over here in your initial settlement that allows you to get extra shamans, which can be a problem in other greenskin campaigns. But you can recruit shamans, you can get extra shamans, you can get up to 4 shaman capacity because you get 1 from items that he has for quest battles. And you're also looking at this hero capacity and hero recruit rank and rogue idol recruitment at tier 3. Even the factions that can counter your Savage Orcs will struggle to counter your Rogue Idols. In fact, the only faction that could genuinely defeat Wurrzag over here in a straight fight, once he gets Rogue Idols, is really Phoric. And Phoric has his own reasons for not engaging in the jungle, even though he has that as a suitable climate. So between ambushing the AI, underestimating its chances in manual battle as opposed to what the auto-resolve is telling it, which is one of the reasons, by the way, auto-resolve needs to be fixed, because it's causing a lot of different issues, you end up being a powerhouse faction. Because when the AI is moving to attack you, as opposed to just turtling up in its elements, that's a benefit. More experience, most post-battle loot, all that kind of stuff that you can get. But the benefits in Wurrzag's campaign don't just end there. If we look at the Savage Orc settlements, you do get recruit rank, diplomatic relations, cooldown for big WASP spells, and Winds of Magic Power Reserve capacity for each Savage Orc settlement. But wait, there's more. A lot more. You gain control of an entire province after turn 1, or you can just take it by force if you want to, if you feel that's more beneficial. There's pros and cons on that particular approach. And when we're looking at Wurrzag's skill line, special skill line, and Lord effects, we get a recruitment cost, charge bonus, physical resistance bonus, and Wurrzag's WA as opposed to regular WA. Pretty big deal, right? A lot of physical resistance. Then Wurrzag is a kind of special Savage Orc Grey Shaman. So a normal Shaman can only get one of these skills. You can get all of them. So you're getting physical resistance, leadership, physical resistance, speed, physical resistance, spell resistance. All of these. And it's worth getting all of these guys. You also have a Mountain. You're pretty scary as a combat magical user because you can get all of the big spells whenever you want. But there's more. Charge bonus, melee attack, cooldown. For big and little WA spells. Magical attacks for your entire army, so even if you're dealing with, say, someone that may have physical resistance, you're actually hard countering that too. You have speed, melee defense, and you also get Winds of Magic cost for Foot of Gork. So he's a really good caster. We got a feel for Teclis. Like, Teclis is just a pathetic weakling in comparison even to Wurrzag. So to give you a context over here of how ridiculous this ends up looking like, his Savage Orcs, and this is not even their final form, but his Savage Orcs between research, skill line, faction effects, get up to 50%. And again, not the final form, because you can get an additional 5% through like liquor flasks. That is ridiculous. So it means that even these regular Savage Orcs, the baseline ones, like, you could take these guys against Savage Orcs, and you'd probably, against Chaos Warriors, you could take these Savage Orcs against Chaos Warriors of Khorne, even ones with dual weapon. They might not win, but damn, they're gonna give as good as they get. Their lack of armor piercing is absolutely a problem, but it is very hard to counter that situation. But wait, there's actually more! Yes, it doesn't stop there either. While Kairos is a really annoying thing because he's generally going to steal one settlement from you and give it to someone else, even if you declare war on him. That is pretty annoying, undeniably so. There is something else worth saying about this. That you do have a Lizardmen faction, 2 Lizardmen factions right next to you. Tic-tac-toe doesn't mean much, but Krokar is a very different beast. Not because he's hard to deal with. No. He's pretty easy to beat. But his faction strength may end up being fairly significant. In fact, usually I see Kroq-Gar having the highest faction strength of the Lizardmen factions early on. So in this campaign, he was faction strength rank 9. And what that means is, if you declare a war against him, you can get the biggest trophy of the Scalies. Well, let's take a look at what the biggest trophy of the Scalies gives. Hero and Lord rank +4, 10% physical resistance, and recruit rank +3. Suffice to say, there are many campaign victory conditions that don't even give a third of that. And yes, it does stack with the landmark that you have in your initial settlement that also gives you Lord Recruit rank +3. Having a Lord Recruit rank of +7 fairly early on in this campaign might take you 20 turns to get it, or realistically 30 or so, give or take, depending on when you're declaring the war. But really, it's pure madness. And tic-tac-toe, your initial opponent also gives you 10% campaign movement range in a campaign as well. Yeah, that is fairly scary when you start adding all of this stuff together. Like, Kroq-Gar is not necessarily too significant, that's why I didn't care about that, but all the same. The power that you have available over here, the dynamics of this campaign make him a powerhouse. I swear, ever since they've changed him with Omens of Destruction in this campaign, I've seen his AI, at least on Legendary, becoming quite a powerhouse. Like, it's not uncommon for me to play a campaign in another portion of the world and to end up seeing Wurrzag controlling everything from this settlement all the way to Skarbrand's territory. Seriously, like, I've seen this guy take, like, all of Nehekara, like, all of it, and then just beating up poor Forik, conquering him too. And that's his AI, and we all know how bad the AI is in terms of decision-making. And hilariously enough, Creative Assembly was like, we're going to increase his faction potential because I guess on lower difficulty it wasn't being quite realized. I don't know. There is a significant difference between difficulties. Like this, in this campaign, Manfred actually conquered Forik, which you never see on Legendary very hard, but I did see it here on Legendary normal. So just changing the battle difficulty from very hard to normal, so I wouldn't have to fight every battle manually, does have that kind of significant impact. But regardless of how you play him, he is a force to be reckoned with. Basically, I'm not afraid of many foes in the jungle. Kairos is just frustrating, to be sure. But I am afraid when I go up against Wurrzag. Between his magical capability and that charge, like, unless you're looking at something as Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds, you should be freaking afraid of seeing this guy's charge. And even with Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds, which are pretty good units for the record, or Tzeentch Chaos Warriors with halberds, you should be damn terrified. He can go toe-to-toe with Kairos from a magical perspective. He has a better economy, better recruitment dynamic, better hero recruitment, ranks, all these benefits. The one thing, and when you're fighting against this AI on Legendary, you may not even have the auto-resolve benefit you think, because yes, Savage Orcs do suck in terms of auto-resolve, but the AI gets all those kind of auto-resolve benefits just because it's AI, because that's all that Creative Assembly can do from the balancing perspective. But it's ridiculous. And there's more, even so. Yes, you have free quest battles, but the location of these quest battles makes it so that you can actually get vision with people like Gorbad, people like Skarsnik. Confederating them from a distance is a bit of a questionable discussion, like especially Gorbad being faction strength rank 1. But you do get a bit of a diplomacy benefit from the Savage Orc settlements, and you might just be able to pull it off. Having vision is a pretty big deal, because it can give you money without any risk. It can allow you for confederations of minor factions, which you can then potentially turn into confederations with major factions. Like over here, I confederated a minor faction and sold some of that territory to Skarbrand, and then it's like, well, Khalid, I just took it, right? But it is a dynamic worth understanding. So if you're looking for, let's say, a more long-term campaign with a lot of insanity available to it, and someone who can take probably the most significant portion of the campaign map in a Greenskin campaign, because again, Lustria is right there. You have all the climate of Lustria available to you. Well, except Temperate Island, there's a bit, Temperate Island's not quite available, but outside of that, you have pretty much all of it. So yeah, you won't be taking Rakarth's initial province completely without penalty, but everything else is fair game. And that is quite freaking ridiculous. Costin signing out.